Hello and welcome to the regular Friday edition of Spurs Diehards TTID Tottenham Till I Die. Yes, we've survived another week of PR disasters at our football club, which we'll be getting into. We're going to do a brief chat about the 2-2 draw for those of you that didn't see the show earlier in the week. We'll talk about other Spurs views and news, and we'll do a prediction of the lineup for Man United away tomorrow, and kickoff's 12:30 for those of you who don't know. Right. Well, let's introduce a new guest and debutante to the show. Justin, JJ Coda below here. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. As you say, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having us on. It's going to be quite an interesting discussion about the week that has been for supporting Spurs. So thank you so much.
There used to be an old show called That Was the Week That Was. And, there's quite a bit to discuss here. Before we start, I just want to go through a few of the comments. We've already got people viewing us on various platforms here. I'll put Alan should be joining us. He's late picking his kids up for school. And Steve, he hasn't messaged me, but he's usually a regular here. So there's Brian. Big up, Brian. Good friend of the show. Big up, Brian. And we've got Graham as well. Big up, Graham. And we've got Roger. Big up, Roger. That's it at the moment. It is Friday. People do go out on Friday night. I don't blame you at all. So, right, let's get right into it. We've got more and more joining us on various platforms as I'm speaking. Right. Spurs 2, Man City 2. Justin, it was a game of two halves, wasn't it?
I think, to be fair, it's fair to say that's just the norm with Thomas Frank, really, more than anything else. You know, we've sort of shown that we can't seem to string together a full 90 minutes. I mean, the game itself was the first half was just savage. You know, if City had actually been bothered to put us to bed, it would have been 4-5-0 by half time. And then the second half, just a different Spurs turned up and were hungry. They had the energy, they had the fire. They wanted to go at them. You know, there were things that we were seeing that we hadn't seen in the first half and seen in most of the matches so far. And, you know, we got back into it. I know there was contentious about the goal itself, but I believe that he's gone round the back of Gehi's foot to get to the ball. You know, you could even argue could it have been a penalty, but the fact of it being is they got the goal, and then Solanke with, you know, in my mind probably up there with the goal of the season, really. And you hope now that can be used as a springboard for the rest of the season now. But this is Tottenham. This is Thomas Frank's Tottenham. I honestly don't know what will turn up at Man United, but we'll just have to wait and see.
We've just started, Steve, so you haven't missed anything. Steve, this is Justin. He's in our WhatsApp group.
Justin, it's a pleasure to meet you. Adrian, I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, we're fine. How's the weather in Michigan?
I'm sure you understand exactly what's going on out here in Michigan. It is very white outside, and there's a lot of it. So yeah, as a matter of fact, I ended up shoveling the driveway today. And, yeah.
I think we've got a scorching I mean, I haven't asked Justin where he's from, but I'm in Edmonton, North London. We were a scorching 6 degrees centigrade, I think. Where were you based, Justin?
I'm down on the south coast in East Sussex, and to be fair, I think we almost touched the heights of double digits. You know, I mean, Steve's talking about being covered in like snow and everything else like that. Yeah. We tend to be covered in a thing called drizzle. Yeah. You know, that's kind of what we get.
All right, so you said you're in East Sussex. Is Brighton in Sussex?
Yeah. So just a bit further up from them, you know, towards sort of Hastings and further up that sort of way. So yeah, but around, when you say Brighton, around that sort of area. Yeah. But yes, it's you know, we're lucky if it hits double digits at the moment, and we don't get snow, we just get drizzle.
Yeah, I think it's a salty air. That's why you don't get snow.
Yeah.
In London, we get flurries, but it very rarely settles in London because cities are warmer. You see, they're warmer anyway. So 2 or 3 degrees warmer. So it takes a lot of snow. It would really have to be a beast from the east coming from us. It's Siberia for us to get.
Yeah, well, I had an ex-girlfriend that landed in the town of Torquay. Home of Torquay United, and she said that's on the south coast, and it used to be a tourist town for all the Londonites that would back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s that would holiday down at Torquay. And I have no idea where that's at. I know it's on the coast somewhere, but you know, I don't know if it's in Sussex.
Brighton's on the east side of England. Torquay's like literally down on the west side, right down the bottom.
Fair.
Right. Okay. I mean, what was your take on the game, Steve? We know it was a game of two halves, but
my opinion of this match is the exact same opinion I've had on every single match for the last 4 months. Is that this team is incapable of putting together two consistent halves of football, and we generally, you know, we either generally start off on the front foot and look pretty good, and then take our gas off at halftime, or we chalk out 45 minutes of the first half, and then come out of the break needing to nick a goal just to get a tie or whatever the case may be. And I think this was exactly this, right? You know, all credit to Manchester City. In the first half, they were absolutely phenomenal, and I think Justin was absolutely right. If things broke in a certain situation, they probably would have been 3 up, 4 up, and that whole second half would have been, you know, moot to begin with, right? But as it stood, here's the thing, right? And I think this is important and what's going on, Alan. I hope you're doing well, my friend.
Hey, man.
And everybody gives credit for Spurs and their attitude in that second half, but also let's understand that Manchester City took their foot off the gas quite a bit in that second half. As a matter of fact, we were able to play in and out of the middle of the park, which is something we couldn't even accomplish in that first half. They literally took their foot off the gas to the point where all you had to do was look at Pep Guardiola's facial expressions to understand that he was scared. That dude was running scared, especially when we tied that ball game up to a point where we nearly actually pulled ahead at one point. There was a beautiful pass, a beautiful play from Xavi Simons. As they were trying to clear it out, it made its way up on the right-hand side, and Xavi literally ran back to the ball carrier, made an unbelievable sliding tackle to get the ball back, and put a cross in that if it wasn't for Mark Gahey's positioning on Wilson Odobert, that would have been 3-2 because he was right there. It was like a bang play ball into the box. And you know, it was only just a very good positioning play for Mark Gahey that you know, allowed us not to take the lead. But don't get me wrong, like, I don't want to take anything away from our second half performance. But that being said, this game again was pretty much the way it played out for the last 4 months. You know, it's, for as much as we like to talk about form, of what's wrong with Spurs and why can't we get results. Yes, injuries play a factor into it, but it's the simple fact that we don't play two halves of football ever. And the reason and the simple fact is that actually has a direct impact on the table as well too, because if we're to ever, you know, make a move and climb the table, we're actually going to have to start, you know, we're going to actually have to start playing football at some point, and not this weird this weird conservative pragmatic approach to football matches. I mean, we're in February. Like, I would understand if this was the first month of the season, but we're in February now, folks. You know, like this is time where we have to put on our big boy pants and actually either kick on or kick down to the relegation spots.
Alan, what was your take on the game?
Well, the first half was horrible.
Mhm.
I may as well have not watched that first half. I could have definitely done with just coming into the second half. You know, the frustrating thing for me is, why do we play like we do in the first half and then suddenly we turn it on in the second half? Why are we doing that? Why can't we play a consistent 90 plus minutes instead of this, this has plagued us for years. We're like a team of two halves. And unfortunately, giving yourself 45 minutes to make up a 2-goal deficit is not so simple. And, it does make it feel pretty good when we did it, and let's be honest, we could have won that game 4-2, 5-2, the way we were playing in that second half and with all of the shots on goal. But for Donnarumma being an amazing goalie, I think or at least as a very good shot stopper, we would have won that game. But it seemed like we were doing something that Thomas Frank wasn't training the team for. The team just decided they were going to do what they were going to do, come hell or high water. They were just going to do it. And it made me question Thomas Frank, his leadership. It's sort of like with Ange, same thing. When Ange was doing his Ange ball style play, we weren't winning. And then suddenly when everyone just said, screw it, we're just going to do what we're going to do, we came out and started playing attacking football that was, but pragmatic. As Steve mentioned, we ruled that center, that middle of the play field for that second half. Conor Gallagher was amazing. He did very well. And so did Xavi Simons. I mean, that was probably, without a doubt, it's not probably, that was his best game in a Spurs shirt. So it was good. I mean, look, I think a lot of people expected us to lose that game. I didn't. I thought we would, to be honest, I always think we're going to win, but I definitely thought we were going to win against Manchester City because we're their bogey team. They don't seem to beat us. And we kept that up at least. So I was glad we salvaged a point. It definitely felt like a win. And to them, I know it felt like a loss.
We did at the stadium too.
Was it? Is that how it was in the stadium? It kind of felt like a win.
Everyone's saying it felt like a win after 2-0 down. You don't think you're going to pull that back, and their record is better away at City than it's at home.
Yeah, but it did. And Steve pointed out again, kind of looking at Pep. I don't like watching Pep because Pep does this weird spit thing constantly with his, he's constantly spitting, and I don't like looking at that. But I know because I've listened to a bunch. After the game, I casually, snuck into a bunch of different Manchester City fan channels, and the meltdown was huge. Not just
huge.
It was huge, yeah, bigly because they expected at 2-0 down. They thought they should have been 3-4 up in the half, and they could have been 3 or 4 up in the half.
Yeah.
But they felt that was a game for them to lose, and it was. They did take their foot off the gas because I think if they come out in the second half the way they came out in the first half, we don't win the game. But they allowed us to get into the game and rule that midfield. They couldn't do anything in the midfield, not a thing.
Let's talk about the system, Justin. I'm not a fan of a back five, right? Although there's so many forms of back five, not all of them. All systems work and all systems fail, right? They do. You see it, right? So you pick your system or what you like, or some people think we're suited to a back five because their system. If we're playing what I'd call a back five, I'm a 3-5-2 man with the wingers tight in. If you're playing two wingers, with the wingers tight in. because then when they're up to the close space and the penalty area, there's less distance from them to pass the ball to your sole striker normally, right? The way this modern horseshoe type of football is played. So, but I thought we started off on the wrong foot. I thought we started off as if we were afraid of City, and we we're playing wing backs. And if you're playing wing backs, and we've seen it before and it's been tried and failed, if your wing backs don't get forward, you're in trouble, right? You're just not going to get enough of the ball. That's why I'm not a fan of the system, basically. That's not necessarily the same if you're playing, if it's a 3-4-3 or, then it's a bit more different. But we just couldn't get hold of the ball. And I put that down to the system. Justin?
I think the difficulty being is that this feels very much like deja vu in terms of last year, when we were getting to the point that we had not enough players, people were, going down injured. We had so many injuries, and it was almost a case of that we were getting to the point where, Ange and now Thomas Frank are putting out players to try and fit any system, because anyone knows would have told you even at the beginning of the season that you're not going to start it with Tell and Odegaard as your wingers. So obviously, yes, we had Kudus, but we needed another one. Everyone knew that, and we didn't do anything. It's nice that we've got the we tried with Semenyo, but the fact of it is that I'm almost starting to believe, and this is why I bring up last season, I almost sit there and believe that the players are doing it for themselves. I think the manager, in this case Thomas Frank, puts the system out there, told the players how he wanted them to do it, and I think at half time the players just were like, now we're not doing that because it's not working. This idea that you set out isn't working, because I can't fathom how you can consistently, not once, not twice, but most of the season, have an awful 45 minutes and an amazing 45 minutes. That to me doesn't add up to sit there and think that these players are listening to the manager, but not just listening, but believing in what he's saying. I think their view of it is, okay, we'll humour you. We'll go with what you've said, because that setup, the way that we set up to play against Man City in the first half, I honestly sat there and thought I was watching Brentford. Sit deep, let them come on to you, try and hit them on the counter. It was almost like you have the ball, you manage. It didn't matter what system we played. It was you have the ball and we will hit you on the counter. And then in the second half, it was get at them, hurry them for the ball, put them under pressure, make them have to think about their passes, they have to be quicker with it and things like that. And when you get the ball, then you go. It just feels like like last year, the players are just trying to humour the manager, but then turn around and go, nah, we don't really fancy this. We're going to do what we know that works and what we feel suits. And I think what doesn't help is the fans are on side with that, because everybody is waxing lyrical about that second half. But I do not believe that Thomas Frank has gone in there and told those players, scrap everything I've told you, do this instead.
Steve, I mean, even with the injuries, even if you were Sam Allardyce or Neil Warnock at this team, you would have imposed a system of play on this team. I mean, Frank's had, 23 league games, 8 LCL games, that's 31, 2 league games, 2 League Cup games, that's 33, 1 FA Cup game, 34. Tell me what system we're playing. Tell me what our philosophy is, Steve.
I would love to answer that question. I really would. From the onset, he's really principled as a defensive first manager, and I think that has shined through, regardless if we're playing well or regardless if we're not. And from that standpoint, where after Ange Postecoglou, the best way to say this is last year under Ange Postecoglou, we conceded 27 points from a winning position. That's a lot of points to be conceded. That's a lot of points to concede, in matches where we were either in a draw or in a winning position, only to turn around and lose turn around to drop those matches. Last year, the last couple of years at Brentford, specifically last year, Frank's Brentford's club gave up only 13 points from winning positions, which is actually a really nice number. So you tend to believe that his clubs were able to close out matches, whether it's in a draw or whether it's in a 1-goal lead, whatever the case may be. That was one of the bigger reasons why he was brought in, because defensively speaking, he's resolute. Okay, fine, but his idea of an attack is a pragmatic approach, which is his idea of what a counterattack should look like. Unfortunately, one of the things that you're going to need are players that are a little bit better suited for that type of system. The players that we have, generally speaking, were geared towards a higher tempo, attacking, front-footed style of football. And now you're asking these players to not necessarily go 100%, but tone it down a little bit. And we saw in the first half of the season that there was an adjustment curve. There was I guess you could say a bit of growing pains, because these players are used to playing one way. And so from that standpoint, it looked like we were scattershot for a good portion of that first half. We had moments where, yes, it looked good. And then we had other moments where these players looked absolutely uncomfortable on the pitch. They looked like they were upset. A lot of frustration boiled over. But what I will say is that, this was never going to be a half a season project, right? It takes a while to establish an identity. It takes a while to actually build a club. And these things were never going to happen within the first half of the season. And it's unfortunate too, because I have no idea what the identity of this club is eventually going to be. That's the tough part about this entire process is you would like to see some building blocks and some foundations that you can point to and be like, okay, dude, I get it. I get what he's actually trying to do, but unfortunately we haven't seen that. And a lot of it, yes, it has to do with injury, but it also has to do with Thomas Frank himself, because even when we weren't injured, there was heavy rotation. And so players never got to gel with, there was never partnerships that were formed outside of the center back pairing, right? So players didn't necessarily gel with each other because there was heavy rotation. And so we never got to see the same starting 11. We never got to see that more than once, because every single week, whether it was a cup match or whether it was Champions League, there was heavy rotation going from back and forth. And every single time there was a different combination of players. So there was no continuity. There was no rhythm. There was no chemistry. There was no momentum. And then players got hurt. You get what I'm saying? And so there's a lot of things that factored into this equation of why we have no identity right now. And, I will say that, if we're looking for somebody to blame, obviously it's the head coach, because he's the one that's responsible for forging out that identity and getting that principle and getting those philosophies, relayed to the players so they understand exactly what's going on. And that's the biggest thing. That's one of the biggest questions I have, is whether or not he actually has relationships with some of these players, because we know when Christian Romero goes out and does that and says what he says, as the window closes.
We'll come on to that.
I know, but it's going to finish my point here. It's that he doesn't have a relationship with Thomas Frank, and Thomas Frank has no control over his players. Right.
Now, Alan, I'll come on to where I part the blame about our identity, because we used to have an identity. I've followed this team for decades, right? I watched the double side played under Bill Nicholson. I watched Birkinshaw's team. Then even when we had Olan Ardiles playing for us, they were Spurs DNA as well. Then you move on. I mean, like you've had Terry Venables. you've had Martin Jol, you've had Harry Redknapp, you've had Pochettino. They're all Spurs DNA. And then we go to Mourinho, Nuno, Conte, right? Now, Mourinho and Conte are world-class managers in their own right and what they've won, but they're not Spurs DNA. They're egocentric managers who think they're bigger than the football clubs they're managing. And you go, please beg me to come and run your club and bankrupt it on players, right? So they weren't Spurs DNA. They didn't play the fast, attractive, type of football that I watched as a kid all the way through. And even when we were bad or played badly, you always know we went out with the intent to play, to attack and try and play. Didn't always work, but you went because even when we had no expectations really through, apart from the years beginning with one and like the few years after each year beginning one when we won trophies, when we had no expectations, we went to the ground to be entertained. We were entertained. We had players that would get you off your seat. You'd pay the money just to watch Hoddle play.
Mm-hmm.
You would do the same with Waddle and Ginola and players like that. Gascoigne, Bale. I mean, you would do that. I mean, Bale left in 2012 or 2013. I mean, it was him or Modric. They both left both in those years, right? But, and then football changes to this horseshoe crap that we have to watch.
Yeah.
I'm not a coach, but I'm pretty sure I could teach players to play a better style of football, more attacking brand of football,
Yeah.
And so I don't just put this down to Thomas Frank. They'll keep saying he's a nice guy. Yeah, well, nice guys don't last long in this world, right? But I still put it down to Levy and ENIC for bringing their managers in, not backing Pochettino in 518 days. There's a lot of fans that say, "Oh, don't have Poch back. He didn't win nothing." Hang about. But look what he did for us in the years he was here. We finished second, third, and fourth in that, right? But he wasn't backed. And he changed the whole expectations of the club. We expected ECL football every season under him. Before that, we would pray we'd get Europa Cup football. We were like that. So, I mean, I agree a lot with Steve's play. I agree with a lot of the angst that's out there against this club. But I still think we're suffering from Levy-itis and ENIC-itis badly at this football club from the time that Poch left in November after 5.5 seasons. And he got rid of, or if it wasn't him, I think 35 or 36 players went through the club when Poch took over. That's how much he transformed us. My little rant over, Al, back to you.
I mean, our identity, unfortunately, I think our identity right now is a negative identity. We kind of, we're known for our inconsistency. I mean, without going into super detail, I think inconsistency and Spurs are mentioned in the same breath. And, it would have been, they say it would have been so Spurs to have beaten Manchester City 3, had we beaten them. It would have been a very Spurs thing to do. I don't know who, I'm not sure I really like the kind of football that Thomas Frank is, providing us. I think the team looks disjointed, and I don't know that they're playing for the coach. I mean, when you have it seems like there's a lot of chaos right now in that dressing room. When you've got Romero and VDV being linked with away, you've got a bunch of players they don't seem interested. I mean, I know we are suffering an injury crisis badly. However, if the training is the same for everyone, you would assume that there would be a style of play that they could put on regardless of who's in those positions. I just don't see it. I don't see any kind of consistency at all. I'm actually kind of worried that we're going to start seeing a lot of the young players like Byfield and other players, because those are the only people on the bench, at this point. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm still pretty bitter about this transfer window. I think that's what's bleeding in. I feel very let down by this window.
Well, I think you and 101% of the fan base.
Yeah.
Why though, Alan? Because this is Tottenham Hotspur we're talking about. This isn't like if this happened with Liverpool, or if this happened to City or Arsenal, in a normal year, I would understand the letdown, but this is Spurs, right? We can't help but step on our dicks every single time, right? We have this way of approaching windows that is always going to, there's always going to be some sort of letdown because we never get enough, or we get the wrong type of profile, or we never sign, we never sign world class, but whatever the excuse, it always happens. And this is the second straight year that we've left another manager twisting in the wind, so to speak. But it's on par for what this club has been over the last 10 years, 12 years.
Well, I think that's part of the problem, right? That is definitely part of the problem, that we don't have a good transfer process. We really don't. We're kind of like, we go after what the new hotness. In this case, it was like Semenyo, which I personally never thought we were going to get Semenyo. If we were a Liverpool or we were a Man City, well, Man City did get him. But I mean, if it were that type of club, I could, and they were in the same position we were in, I could still imagine they would pull a Semenyo and they'd get him. They would do it early. Bentancur gets injured, boom, we should be the next day getting Conor Gallagher. We have a lot of injuries, and we didn't help to kind of cover us. We're now just sort of depending on the under 21s to kind of come in and stand in for them, which I don't think is right. And the under 18s, what am I talking about? Byfield is what, 17?
17, 18 years, yeah.
Yeah. So we're it's not the right plan. They didn't plan right. Look where we are. We're 14th. We didn't plan correctly. The problem is we never learn from the past. So we keep making the same mistakes. And you got to imagine that's got to be, we thought it was Levy, and it's got to be Enoch. It's got to be their philosophy bleeding through to their people. All of the higher ups, I got to imagine. And Thomas Frank, unfortunately, he doesn't push back at all, right? He shows so much respect even to our opponents. I can't imagine that he's showing much spine to the higher ups. I don't believe that he's got the best interests of the team in mind so much as he's like, well, that's what they want. That's what I'll do. We'll move forward and we'll just make the best of it. And that's kind of frustrating.
Justin, back to you. I haven't spoken for a while. What I've seen, though, even for all this chaos, organized chaos, I would call it, basically, what I've seen for all this organized chaos is at least that if it weren't for our injury crisis, there's a lot of young players in this team that have had a chance to develop. We've turned virtually into a training complex, our first team. I mean, the likes of Telt and Odegaard have stepped up recently. They're not there yet. I think another season they will be, and you've had Graham Bergvall look like they've been. Gray started off really well for us in every position he played. And then towards the latter end of last season, Bergvall started to shine. And then you got Xavi as well. So there's positives in the chaos, but we're frustrated because we wouldn't have had to be put in this situation. We'd had a good squad. They would have been drip fed into this team, like in the past. There were some good. I'll put some individual performance down. I thought these players did well in the second half. Obviously, the first two. I mean, we know they're outstanding on the day. Solanke doesn't look like he looks proper fit, even though Frank says he's got some ways to go still. What did you take of the second half performance of some of these, or if you want to add someone I've missed out,
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair reflection with regards to them. These were people that stood up, and I mean, you're talking about the younger players. I think Archie Gray is probably going to be a little bit of an unsung hero for the club because he's just a jack of all trades. You can almost put him anywhere and he'll do a job. I think. If I was him, I'd put the gloves on and get Vicario out of the squad. But the fact of it being is that he just gets on with it. He just turns round. He doesn't let anything phase him with it. I think Paulinho as well. I wouldn't be surprised if that move gets made permanent. I think it fits into the mold of what we were looking at when we were going to be looking at Andy Robertson, you know, a guy who's got plenty of experience, very versatile, can play at the back, play in midfield, you know, and has got real passion, fire in his belly. And, you know, when you're looking at those, I mean, you know, Gallagher, the determination was what set off for the goal for Solanke. So, you know, there's a good nucleus of a squad, not a great squad, but a good sort of nucleus of players. And I think the thing that was frustrating really is the naivety of the ownership beyond this window, because nobody went into this window thinking, you know, we're going to go and get Semenyo. Nobody went into this window thinking we were going to spend 200-300 million pounds. Everybody went into this window thinking we're in a really tough situation. You've got all the clubs around us were buying players to, you know, because they had injuries and wanted to bulk up their squad. Now, people might argue, okay, but you haven't got FA Cup, League Cup, you've not got the Champions League for, you know, a month or so. But when you've got so many players out, the logical thing to do would have maybe have just brought in one or two to help those players, because, you know, on the one hand, we were having injuries last year, but, you know, it seems to be working for the likes of Romero and Van de Ven, because they've played most of the season. It worked for Porro before he got injured. And you just felt if we could give some of, you know, some extra, you know, people in, even if it was just a loan to the end of the season or things like that, it would have then just made it a bit easier for everybody involved. So I do think that credit from what you've said there on those players, but I think obviously we can look at Byfield, who seems to be taking to it like a duck to water, you know, seems completely natural at the back. And to be honest, is almost putting us in a situation where if a big bid does come in for Romero or Van de Ven, you know, maybe one or the other does move on, because, you know, Vuskovic should be coming back, you know, and if we've got him, Byfield, and either Van de Ven or Romero, possibly Danzo as well, you know, let's not forget we've got Ashley Phillips out at Stoke, who's been doing really well for them. You know, I'm not sure he'll make it at our level, but he has been doing really well for Stoke in the Championship. You know, it then means that this has not been a bad learning curve. But I just feel that whilst those players, all the ones you've highlighted there, have stood out, something you said at the very, very beginning that just epitomized all of it, those players stood out for the second half. You know, we're not going to get, you know, and I know you're going to talk about it later, we're not going to get the same luxury with United. We're not going to get that same luxury at Old Trafford. You know, we need to be putting in a performance for the full 90 plus so minutes to get, you know, I think any of us here would take a point from that game just to get out of it. And, you know, because 2 points from these four that we, you know, that we thought was going to be the fixture grouping of death, I think would be an amazing achievement from that so far. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Brilliant performances, but we need that to be, you know, what those performances were over 90 minutes rather than just 45.
Right. Let's go on to this, Steve. I was at the game, and naturally you're 2-0 down. The rhetoric's going to be ramped up around the ground, you know. Romero's had a bust up in the change room. He ain't coming out for the second half, you know. He's had a row with Frank and all this. Then you get all them comments. And yet, I'll lay my cards on that. I'm a big Romero fan. I know every player is sort of divided amongst the fan base that we've got. I mean, the guy wanted to stay on the pitch away at Brentford that first game 2-2. Vicario played when he had concussion. He wanted to play when his big toe was, ligaments in his foot were done. Like, he wanted to play on. He wanted to stay. He played while he's been ill, apparently now. I mean, I don't get the anti-Romero. I don't get it personally, but, you know, it's liking or disliking a player subject. In fact, some fans will choose to dislike a player for no particular reason. They just like a dog to kick.
You know, listen, man,
Oh, you're American.
Yeah, see, yeah. He's a World Cup winner,
Oh.
and he's
And
passionate.
so-
And believe it or not, he actually plays hard for the badge as well too. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. There's a few things though, but what I will say is the interesting thing about what he said. And now here's the thing: it wasn't what he said, because he was absolutely true with what he said. My issue was with how he said it. And maybe this is just a cultural issue between Americans and English. But if I have a problem with somebody, I'm going to take it to them. You know what I mean? Like, and that's like we all have issues with bosses and things like that. And it's one of the things I'm not going to do is go to my social media and absolutely slam my bosses in my company, and take them to task. I mean, personally, I think it's actually kind of cowardly to take that route. But that being said, it's like, and we don't know if that happened in the interim before he did it again. But for me, I don't know, man. I just thought it was, I just thought his comments were absolutely distasteful. And I lost a lot of respect for him for doing that as well, too, because at that stage,
on that distasteful bit, because we know what the media are like. So we'll put this point here.
Yeah.
The word disgraceful in Spanish can also be interpreted as unfortunate. Now, we know the media they'll always twist the manager's word for a story. So I just want to put that out there for balance, basically.
And the thing that he ended up coming off, to me at least, and this is my own personal opinion, he came off like another, like your average keyboard warrior, where it's like, he operates, and this is the thing, as a captain, there's a certain level of decorum that you have to have. And when you do that, it sends the wrong message to everyone that you can take a pop at the manager on social media, or you can take a pop at the board, and there's not going to be any repercussions, which is why I think ultimately what's going to end up happening is he's going to leave in the summer. Because I think his frustration is the fact that promises were made. For him to resign, promises were made, and promises weren't kept.
Yeah.
And so from that standpoint, I think that's where the frustration came. But that being said, he's class. There's no doubt about it. He's 100% class. And I don't want to see him go, because the last thing you want to do is break up a center back partnership that actually is going to be something that you can win a Champions League with. Me personally, I think the talent between Romero and Van de Ven is so high that it's actually better than Vertonghen and Alderweireld. And I like that center back pairing, but this is night and day better. But that being said, it's like we understand how Spurs operate. They are a risk-averse enterprise, and the saying that all press is good press, that doesn't sit with them. They absolutely do not want bad press. And they certainly do not want their captain popping off on Instagram over their inability to manage this team.
Yeah, well, I don't give a shit about what you think about our captain.
No, I get it. But I would probably assume that ENIC is going to move him in the summer.
Well, on that, Alan, I mean, you're going to get these rumours when we're down here. Oh, Liverpool want VDV. Yeah, they've just bought a centre back, right? And we know how much VDV and Romero are going to cost, because their contracts run to 2029, and that's without options, extensions. And if players want to break the contract, fine, but it costs them an absolute fortune to do so. That's why none of them do. That's why you get other managers, like they try and wind a player up. We'll start stirring it at your own club. Get the move, and we'll come and get you. But they don't, because even their agents are thinking, hang about. If you're losing money, I'm losing money as well. So, like, agents are like, you'd rather have a pet snake, right? So, yeah, I mean, so do you think like I do? I mean, I could be totally wrong here in my thinking, but my thinking is right. The pressure's really ramped up on ENIC now. They have to move. We'll come to the transfer window dates later. I've got me in for the World Cup and everything else like that. But the pressure's really ramped up on ENIC now. It's not going to let up with this fan base now to the season. Rest of the season. And so they've really got to move early in that next transfer window to convince VDV and Romero that we actually do mean business. The money's there. We know the money's there now. They said they couldn't get players in. Well, so do you think like I do that it's going to depend? I mean, if Frank goes, and I think he will, and I think Poch would unite the fan base, and as Gallagher was his captain at Chelsea, Gallagher'd welcome him here. And as he's Argentina, he could probably pacify Romero as well. I think even the board would know that as well anyway. They're not stupid. I mean, all the things they do wrong, you know, when we
Allegedly.
finish with one PR blunder, we're minutes away from the next one, aren't we? You know what I mean? So do you think, like I do, that the pressure's really going to be on ENIC now?
Oh
I
yeah.
can see it with the protest movement as well. You know, and we've got a show about that Sunday, Ian, guys, by the way. EMF has got Brian Daigle on. He's getting Billy T on. He's getting Connor on as well. Leaving-omics on as well. So mark that in your diary for Sunday, guys, at 8 o'clock. Get over it. It should be a belter of a show. Go on.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Look, they had an opportunity in this window. When we talked about it, they had an opportunity, and it was a golden opportunity to. And I think the fans would have been fine with it. It was like the perfect storm. They, you know, if they came out strong in this transfer window, in the winter window, basically, without saying it, they could foist all of these years' troubles onto Daniel Levy, and they could say, "Look, it was Daniel. It wasn't us. Look what we've done. We picked up all of these good players." But, and I saw someone in the comments was saying it. I think some of it is people are afraid to come, and I think it has to do with maybe it's perception, you know, because from outside, and as an American fan, I'm very outside, you know, but from the outside looking in, it looks as though there's a lot of disharmony in the club. You know, and when you have, especially when you have people like Romero, who's the captain, using, and I know, you know, like I kind of feel the same way Steve does. You know, I'm not a fan of using social media as a way to get attention to myself or to express myself, like on Instagram or whatever, if I'm gonna rail against my boss and the organization. But I guess that's just how it's done nowadays. You know, the Romero is younger, and the younger generation, they tend to use places like Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that to kind of express themselves because maybe they don't feel like they can do it in person. But even if he is an explosive personality, and he can be, I think everybody feels that way about him. He's obviously frustrated. And whether he's frustrated because he wants to leave and he just feels held down by a contract, or he's truly frustrated because he wants the club to do better, there's frustration regardless. And ENIC didn't do themselves favors by screwing the pooch in this transfer window. You know, doing things like selling Brennan Johnson and then not having a plan of who to replace him with. You know, I didn't understand that. Not that I was a big fan of Brennan Johnson. You know, Brennan Johnson was how he played, and he was our number one scorer last season, so I have to thank him for that. And he scored the goal that got us the Europa League final championship. You know, so I was thrilled about that. But there are better strikers out there, and that's not a knock on Brennan Johnson, but there are better strikers out there, and selling to trade up is perfect. I would love that. And I think that's how big clubs are. They churn out players. They train players. They're very good. They sell them. And then they purchase better. I think there's a lot of disharmony in the club. And I think it stems from ENIC. And I think even if we have a strong transfer window in the summer, I just don't see how ENIC ever gets trusted. You know, I don't see the fans ever saying, "Yeah, I'm cool with ENIC." I just don't see it. I think for 25 plus years, you know, for 25 years or however long, you know, we've seen the team kind of degrade, not get better. And, you know, I remember under Poch, like you were saying, it seemed like we were making the Champions League most often. And that was when he wasn't backed. You know, when he went 2 transfer windows, not a single player came in, which was worrying. And we're not replacing people like Heung-min Son and Harry Kane with Heung-min Son level and Harry Kane level people. And that's worrying. You know, ENIC has done a lot of negative things to this club. I just don't see how they win back any goodwill just because of one summer window, which may be very good. I hope not, because that would be pulling the wool over our eyes.
Justin, I mean, what excuse do they have? They've had all season to compile this. All right, if we can't attract the elite players who want to go for Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, PSG, you know, maybe even Man City, Liverpool, whatever, then at least you can attract the level below that, like your Conor Gallagher, who's not elite, but he's just that level below that. And all these players, what gets me, that are in big squads of the bigger teams, like that can't get regular game time, and their teams and their countries are playing in a World Cup in the summer. You can't tell me there wasn't a few we couldn't have got in. I'm just not having it.
Well, I think you can sum it all up when I don't know if anybody saw it, but Ademola Lookman, he went to Madrid, and in his first game he got a goal and an assist.
Yep, he had a great game.
You know, and you're talking about similar money to what it would have cost to get Conor Gallagher. And I think the problem that we've got here, particularly with this window, is I don't believe they anticipated for Paratici to walk away or to indicate he wanted to go back to Fiorentina. And obviously his comments were quite interesting when he talked about how serious the ownership was there, which I thought was a little bit, you know, degrading to ENIC, but I think it's justified. But they turned around and they kept him there to help. They said that they wanted him to stay to help with the remainder of the transfer window. I'm not sure what he helped with. For a guy who has multiple contacts, is known all over the world, and has helped pull out deals like Kulusevski, Bentancur, helped us find loads of others, and yet did nothing. And then we have the comments, when it comes to Vinay Venkatesham, and he turns around and he says, where he sees the club getting and the wages that we're going to be paying and things like that. And you're sort of sitting there, and then you realize afterwards we didn't sign a single player. So what was the point? What was the point in even saying that? And I think the problem is for ENIC is the fact that it's the equivalent of buying a house without actually doing any research on it, because they turn around and they viewed it as, oh, well, Daniel Levy's the problem. Just get rid of Daniel Levy. And the problem is Daniel Levy was part of the problem. He was a main part of the problem. However, he was working under a regime that was set bestow him by Joe Lewis. And because Joe Lewis kept a distance and let him get on with it, the thing was that once they got rid of him, there was just nothing. He did everything. He ran everything. He ran it almost like a dictatorship. Everything came through him. He dabbled in everything. If you've watched the interview he did with Gary Neville when he talks about his dealings with the stadium and all of that lot, he dealt with everything. And you're sitting there and you're thinking, nobody else does that. In no other form of business do you turn around, take a guy out and not have a clue what has been left underneath. And so it's almost as if it's the equivalent of throwing, pardon my French, shit at a wall and seeing what sticks, because the view of it is they think, communication, they want to hear from us. Right, well, let's start communicating more. I'll be honest, no one cares if you communicate. Just do what you say. To turn around and come out and say you're going to start paying the higher wages, to turn around and say you want to compete on all fronts, to turn around and say you want to take us to this high level and do nothing, will anger fans more. Yes, they hated Levy, but Levy didn't say the opposite. Levy didn't turn around and say, we want to win this, we want to win that. He did at the end, once we won the Europa League, which is probably what was his downfall at that point, ironically. But you look at all the players that were sold, and I know, and I don't understand it. I wanted, and I'll put my hands up. I wanted Thomas Frank to succeed at the football club. Okay,
Amen.
I did, and I wanted it before he even got there because I felt under Levy, we know what we're going to get. I thought Romero's going to go, probably Van der Ven will go. We're going to have not a great season, but he can then slowly build on something. But the way that these owners came in and the way that these owners sold this dream and sold what this window was going to be like, you're almost sitting there now, and I get what was said about they can't come back from this. They can, because fans are fickle. We're all fickle. If we sign all these players and we start going for it and get to the top of the league and everything else, we all remember when Daniel Levy came out and said we've got our Tottenham back when we were top of the league before we had that Chelsea game. We all loved it and everything else like that. But the problem now is they've got nowhere to go because we're 14th. Leeds have now just joined, we're on points with Leeds now. Okay. And when you look at it from that perspective, to turn round, and I agree with the comment on there, Johnson wasn't the answer, but he was a body in the door. And what big clubs do not do, and we saw it with loads of others, you don't sell your best, or not your best, you don't sell one of your players until you got a replacement. Yeah. You might want to sit there and think about the money, and okay, 35 million for him wasn't bad, but the fact of it being is we didn't replace him, and that is criminal. When you're 14, there's almost a level of arrogance of, won't go down, we'll be fine. And no club is too good to go down, not to go down. I'm sorry. Even City could if they just gave up and played with a level, and just thought they were better than everybody. They don't. They play to the level of potential. And I do really worry about the rest of the season because in my mind now, after that window finished, I thought 40 points. That's all I thought. 40 points. Get the 40 points, we're safe. And then they've got nowhere to go because we then have to go for the big. We have to go for the big players. We cannot sit there and go and buy potential like we've done in the past.
Justin, I know you're stuck from time. I want to throw this at you. I mean, all the seasons under Levy and all that, it was Europe. Don't worry about the cups. Europe means everything. I mean, does this board, by their inactivity in the transfer, actually want European football?
I'm going to be honest. I don't think they do. I must admit, the other thing that I did think of at this time was they've written off the season. They've written off because once we got into the automatic knockout stage of the Champions League, we made 40 million quid. You could have gone and got Lookman for that. You weren't banking that money with it.
But Justin, this is the criminal aspect of it. It wasn't that we sold Johnson without having a replacement. We didn't have a plan in place.
No.
In order to replace it, we were chasing shadows.
Yeah.
What do I mean by chasing shadows? Chasing players that we knew were never going to come here.
We didn't do, Steve, exactly that.
Players that were injured.
We didn't do what other clubs do. They get a replacement in before they sell.
That.
Yep. Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
And that sums up.
I wanted Son to stay. I got pelters. I said, look, I wanted Kane to stay. Don't get me wrong. We'd have got ECL football if he'd stayed, right? But my reason is just my own selfish reason. As a season ticket holder and follow the club for decades, I just want to see the best players at the football club.
I'll
at a high standard. That's then the manager and the board's problem, not mine.
Yeah.
But I want to see the best players,
The thing with me, with regards to Son, with regards to Kane, I didn't have a problem them going because ultimately players do want to move on and they reach levels in their career where their best years are behind them. The worry that I had was what would be done with that money. Bearing in mind, if anyone remembers when we sold Gareth Bale for 85 million quid and we bought, I was going to say 7 barrels of rubbish, but Ericsson was one of them. So it was 6 barrels and Ericsson. And this is where this part now, when we're looking at the players that are meant to so-called be coming in the summer, they can't be 10, 20, 30 million pound players. We're talking
Auto.
50, 60, 70, 80 million pound players that have to walk through the door, because if they don't, I mean, I think we've got to be realistic. This model isn't going to go. ENIC aren't going to walk away. I mean, I know there's talk that Levy's going to sell his share, but at the end of the day, you've still got to convince the other 70% to go from there. But the fact of it being is, what I think needs to happen is we need to collectively come together, get that 40-point mark, secure Premier League football, and then go after them. Because what will then happen is they'll no longer keep the puppet in Thomas Frank, because his interviews are becoming embarrassing. That they are absolutely ridiculous. Turning around and saying, when someone asks you, is Romero going to be here? And you go, I have no idea. What? Yes, you do.
What do you mean? What do you mean? He's your club captain.
Exactly.
He's your club captain. And oh, by the way, he's under contract. So yes, he is going to be here. That's all you have to say.
Absolutely. And this is the thing. This is where the problems lie. And this is why, to be honest, Frank is a dead man walking, because for when Romero came out the first time and was critical of the club, nothing. They didn't fine him. They did nothing. They kind of pandered to it. Same again. The moment you have your captain who has more leadership than your manager does, he's a dead man walking. He is. And as I said,
the players all gave his comments a thumbs up.
They did. Yeah, it was horrendous. It was. And I do believe that, and I can't remember which one said it before, Poch is coming back. I mean, he's so desperate to come back. I think the moment he'll be on that plane, the moment the United States, sorry guys, get knocked out of the World Cup, he is there.
This is where you're wrong, because we're not going to get knocked out of the World Cup. Just continue. I just need to throw that in there.
That is a beautiful sentiment.
They're meeting up in the final. They're going to meet England in the final.
You know what? I share a similar view. If I thought that way, I would agree with you, because I'd also think that Spurs are going to win the Champions League. So absolutely fine. But yeah, once USA, win the World Cup, they won't, but when they do, he will then be on the first plane back to Spurs, sorting it from there. So yeah, it's that is very much what this season's about. Get to 40 points and then get him out, probably a whole load of the deadwood out, and then really see if these owners have the stones for it, because there is no excuse. They've hidden since Levy left, they've hidden behind excuses.
Yeah.
And that will have to change, because there won't be any left.
Well, so I agree with you. And number one, if I'm going to be a happy clapper for any team, it's going to be my national team, because I believe in the United States men's national team that much that I can be a little bit Looney Tunes when it comes to that team. But where I do agree with you is that that if there's any, like right now, what Spurs absolutely need is exactly what Vin Ivan Contesham said, which is essentially to hit the reset button, which is to wipe the slate clean and rebuild the foundation. And there's only really one coach that's going to have the credibility to come and do that, and that's Pochettino, because this is like a 3 to 5 year project. And there's really only one coach that the fans will actually give it to, and that's Pochettino, because he already has the credibility and the trust already established with this fan base. And even if there is growing pains in the first 2 years, they're still going to give him the third year because of what he did previously. And if ENIC is serious, and by the work of Johan Lang, a lot of people would say, no, it's fool's gold, but it's Johan Lang, right? Let's understand here that ENIC doesn't have a say. Like, they really don't involve themselves in the day-to-day football operations. That's why they have Vinny Van Contesham and they have Johan Lang. That's what those guys' job is to do. And Johan Lang, not Paratici, because Paratici had nothing to do with this window. This was all Johan Lang and his technical staff that were responsible for this window. And so if you're judging ENIC off a guy who literally is not in a position and does not know how to build a Big Six club, that's that before Pochettino comes in, that has to be addressed.
I
Because
would
because
be,
you're not
I'd
going
be
to get
stunned if he's still
you're not
there.
gonna-
You know,
you're not going to
I
you're not
don't
going to
think
get
Elanga will be there, or if he is, he'll be demoted to such a
because
level he'll quit.
if you're going to pivot back to Pochettino, which would be the right move, you can't have Johan Lang be the guy that's responsible to give him players, because
My
they're
betting
going
will be Paul Mitchell will come back because he worked under him previously,
Yeah,
and
maybe.
I think that will be he would work with it. For me, everything aligns with Pochettino coming back and then finding a model that will suit for him to galvanize the club, galvanize the players and the fans.
Because I think Adrian actually mentioned this just yesterday on one of my shows that I did. It's this summer is going to be interesting, right? Because we have the World Cup, and players are not going to be moving during the World Cup. I think there's an early window, and then there's the one after the World Cup. And so if Pochettino comes literally the next day after the U.S. gets knocked out, that's not going to happen. But if they do get knocked out, he's going to be on a plane back to North London the very next day. And that means the rubber meets the road between then and the start of the Premier League season, which only gives Spurs about a month and a half of window. So you have to hit the ground running. You have to be prepared, and you have to have all the pieces in place so you can address the 4 or 5 transfers that you're going to need to get through that door before the start of the Premier League season. And the last thing you want to do is fail Pochettino by leaving Lange in place. Yeah. Unless you want your first team to be a collection of 18 to 22-year-olds.
So if that's the World Cup is from the 11th of June to the 19th of July, right? 5.5 weeks.
Just about to say it's going to be an exciting summer.
Actually, let me combine them. It'll make it easy for you. Just bear with me a second, guys. Right, let's add this to the one above because it'll make it easier to see. Otherwise, you're never going to get it. Well, that might save a bit. Let's edit it. I'll go through it because it'd be easier that way. Save. Let's see if this works now. Okay, I've combined to look a bit gobbledygook to some of you here. So the 2026 summer transfer window is Monday the 15th of June to the 31st of August, which is 11 weeks, 7 days, which is normal. But if you look, the World Cup starts on the 11th of June, which is 4 days before the transfer window opens, and it ends on the 19th of July. So you have got the rest of July and the 31 days of August. So you have got about 6 weeks. But the caveat to that, as we've all alluded to, is the fact that ENIC need to get their arse into gear at the beginning of the window. If you're going to pacify Romero, VDV, even though you might be waiting on Poch, but if it's Poch, that deal will be agreed on the quiet before Frank knows he's going, that after the World Cup, he'll be coming, whatever. I think it's almost a certainty that if ENIC want to really relieve pressure on themselves, even if they don't give a crap about the football club, they get Poch in because he'll come. He won't go to Man United. He'll come to Spurs. Job unfinished, right?
Yeah.
So this is the issue. I mean, and again, another thing when we talk about players' welfare, like it's only 2 years out of every 4 they get a rest before a season because you've got the Euros or you got the World Cup. Yeah. And that's without players that are in the National Nations Cup that might play too much football and come back if they're in your squad. So this is an issue, It's an issue I've spoken about whether the Premier League should. I mean, one thing they should definitely do is like Europe. I mean, Europe, you've got 9 subs on. You're allowed 12 subs on the bench. We're allowed 9. Should be more. And I actually think squad would be bigger. But if you increase from 25, the poorer clubs won't like it because the bigger clubs get to strengthen their teams. And the European clubs would definitely complain about it. Not the big ones, but the lesser ones. Now you've got a bigger advantage because you can afford to have a bigger squad of better quality players than us. So that would be an issue, but something's got to be done. But this window, it's going to be complex. It's going to be a complex window. It's a good job that it is 11 weeks, 77 days anyway, because we know January is hard, but there's no excuse for that lack of activity. Steve, what's your take? Or Alan, your take?
The problem, I think, my concern is we've acted like a small club these last 2 years. So we came in 17th. Yes, we won the Europa League, but we came 17th in the Premier League, and now we're 5th in the Champions League, but we're 14th in the Premier League. And I think if I was a player, if I was like, one of the players that Spurs were scouting, I would probably look at that and say, well, there's something weird going on. Why is it that you guys are good on one side, not the other? And there's so much disharmony and discord. I'm worried that we've made ourselves sort of like pseudo pariahs, to these players, and make it very difficult to attract top talent or even second tier top talent. I'm worried about that in the summer. That's the thing, is Thomas Frank the coach that's going to get people to come to the squad, come to our squad? I don't know that I believe that. Pochettino, for us, we're very nostalgic. I think I'm in the minority that I'm a little worried about bringing back Poch, only because, it's like, to me, it's like trying to go out with a girlfriend you already broke up with once. Sometimes, many times it doesn't work, and the same things that were wrong the first time pop up again the second time. And, you go long enough, you're like, well, I miss the good times, and you forget about the bad times. But then you're in it, and then you remember all the bad times, and you're like, well, but there were, was Poch's first round perfect? No, but it was really good. I don't remember all the bad stuff, but I'm sure I will if things go wrong for him. And will it tarnish him? It's such a good run. I know he didn't win the Champions League, but it was such a momentous, occasion to be in the Champions League final. And with the shitty way we lost to Liverpool, it still bothers me. But
yeah.
Justin's got to
go in a minute. Steve, sorry to interrupt you. Justin's got to go. He's only coming on from an hour.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on, Justin. And if you want to add to what Alan said, I mean, like with Poch, I remember it didn't start off that well. It went to the away game with Villa. If you remember, I remember it clearly. Kane actually scored a free kick. Probably he's only scored 2 in time at the club, but it deflected off the wall and went in the net, didn't it? And that virtually saved Poch's job, because no one really heard of him when he was at Southampton. Just that he played a high press.
He was very much like the Thomas Frank at that time. He'd come from a lower club, but had not done a bad job. And you did sit there and you were like, okay, is this actually going to be, is he just going to be another flash in the pan and not going to work, and we're going to boot him out and get another one in who's more recognised? But I think what he did was he brought together a collective group of players. And I get what was being said about, do you go back in effect to an ex? It wasn't right. But I think the difference this time with that is the ownership hopefully know they've got to get this right. They've got to get the manager in that will galvanize the fan base. Everybody would be behind it. They've got to make sure that they get a director of football in that he can work with, that he trusts. So I know there's been talk of Paul Mitchell, and I think, that would be probably something that's going on in the background. And I think also we've got to remember as well that one of the biggest reasons that Poch walked or got sacked or eventually it went sour was because of Daniel. Daniel Levy himself, when he brought out that statement about, we've got a great house, but we need to now address the furniture with it. He didn't do that. And then obviously you could see that Poch had enough and just wanted to be sacked. So I understand what you're saying about never going back, but I do think it would be different. But this is Tottenham. Who knows where that goes? So, but thank you so much for having us on. Lovely to meet you all.
We'll get you back, Justin.
And I'll catch up with you soon. All right.
Yeah. All right.
Hopefully the United game goes well. Fingers crossed.
Yes.
Right, on that note, quick plug for the channel. We got 70 of you are watching us on various platforms on a Friday night when you should be out drinking. Right. So we really appreciate that.
Thank you. Cheers.
If you like the content, you're on various platforms, please nip over to our YouTube page and give the video a thumbs up on the channel. At the same time, I did put Alan and Steve's in the comments, their links, but I'll do it on the banners as well. if I can find them. I've got to scroll up now.
Yeah, Alan, the only thing that I can think about the negatives with Poch, if you want to look for negatives, it's maybe his cup runs. His cup runs weren't exactly inspiring from that standpoint. But the other thing was the fact that he wasn't backed.
That's
There
true.
was always a reason why I can't really tell you right now who Harry Kane's deputy was at striker. I really can't, because I don't I think we had Janssen for a
Yeah, it
little
was
bit.
Jansen.
Yeah, but for the most part, it's like,
He was
we didn't necessarily have the squad depth, and we kind of ran Harry Kane and Eriksson and Dele and Sonny into the goddamn ground. But what I will say, and that was the biggest reason why he left, was the fact that I think he just got tired of the fact of, it's like, we need to refresh our squad because these guys are in their prime, and we also need to think about the next.
Mhm.
And they're coming off a Champions League final where it's like, you saw what Liverpool did after they lost one the year before, addressed it, came back and won it. And it's like, we easily could have pulled that had we actually taken the wherewithal. And we're not talking about hundreds of millions of pounds here. We're talking just at key positions, whether that be striker, whether that be winger, whether that be midfield, just so we can actually have the same quality and we can rotate. So we're not necessarily running players into the ground. So for me, this time around, it's a big if, because we don't know, but if ENIC are serious, that means Mauricio Pochettino is going to be back this time. And one of the things that I like about it is the fact that we have a relatively young squad, and he's pretty good at molding young talent.
Yeah.
And for me, that's a plus. And if we can add to it, the sky is the limit. So me personally, that's where I feel like I'm at with Tottenham. It's the fact that the foundation has to be rebuilt, and really there's only one guy to do it. And when is that time going to happen? Who knows? I mean, there's a chance that ENIC will pull the wool over our eyes again, and Thomas Frank will be our coach next year.
Right, let's move on a bit to some Spurs news. We like to bring you facts on Spurs.
Ooh.
So these guys, I've been posting videos of these guys from I'm linked to YouTube Junior Football and that, and a few channels actually. I'm linked to loads of channels to bring you news. And Mikey Moore, I mean, he's absolutely smashing it at Rangers. And actually, Dane Scarlett, Kilmark, he did well. He got an assist and a goal as well. But Moore posted one of all his time in Scotland. Since Rangers changed their manager, he's just gone from strength to strength. He ran the show during the week. He's another one like Vuskovic, who should be in this squad next season, Alan. Both of them should.
Mikey Moore's doing great at Rangers. I mean, he started off slow, but has found his, he's found it. So his form. Dane Scarlett is he with Hibernian?
Yep, he's with Hibs.
Is it Hibs? Right. Yeah, I was wrong. I thought it was Kilmarnock. He's with Kilmarnock. I don't know.
I know did he have an assist in his first game?
And a goal.
Yeah. We all knew he had it in him. I mean, he was doing better for us when he was on the pitch. He was pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's going to have a career at Spurs. I think Lancashire's got more chance. But, I mean, he scored against Shakhtar Donetsk in Kane's last game when we won 5-1. He got the last goal to turn and swivel in the box. And he scored against Elfsborg, the head of the first goal, when Ajayi and Mikey Moore scored. As I recall. So, yeah, I mean, I watched him as a 17-year-old. He was the best player on the pitch out of the 22. Just stood out. But, come to a halt. Hadn't got the games, If Richie hadn't stayed injury-free, he might have got a couple of games or whatever. But he's one of those. I think he's going to score goals wherever he goes. I know he will, because he is a good finisher, But
the question, someone in the chat just said exactly what I was about to say. Mikey Moore being prolific and such a good striker in the Scottish league, Dane Scarlett in the Scottish league, maybe that is where they were meant to be. Maybe that the Premier League was just too tough for them. Or they just weren't ready for the Premier League, but it's just because they flourish in one other league does not mean that we've seen it time and again. It doesn't necessarily translate to success in the Premier League.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But at the same distance, you could say, I mean, you look at Vuskovic. He went from Hajduk Split. We paid about 12.5 million for him as a 16-year-old, which is unheard of at Spurs. He goes to Poland, smashes it. Goes to Westerlo or Westerlo, however you pronounce it, smashes it. Now goes to Hamburg, not the best team in Germany. So you know you're going to be under pressure as a defender when you're not playing one of the best teams.
Playing well.
And absolutely smashed it. Won awards out there. Won like
Now
Bayern winning awards. Won the half season player award. Won goal scoring awards as well. He's a centre back. And I said to Phil King and all that, I said, look, I watched him as a youngster, followed him, tried to get everything I could see him on youth football. He is better in every metric. And I like Kevin Danso. Don't get me wrong. Kevin Danso is the type of Ben Davies type of player in your squad. Never going to complain. He's won himself a Europa League medal, you know. But to me, he plays instead of Danso every day of the week and twice on Sundays. I think Vuskovic is that good. And now people are beginning to recognise it. They're saying it, right? So, the same as Mikey Moore. We let Son go. He's on the left. He would have improved. He got hooked in the game when he wasn't good and all that in the Premier League. But, you know, the guy's 17. He was only 18 in August as well. What he's doing at his age. And when you think that 19-year-olds, Bergvall and Gray, I mean, they'll have their critics. But what they do for their age in the Premier League, you're playing all them games and you're 19 years of age. Mm-hmm. The pace of the game, it's like, I think it's fantastic and for us because they're both going to be superstars, both of them. Right, and so about Mitch and Mikey Moore. Go on, Steve.
What I like about Dane Scarlett's first impression in the Scottish Prem is that it puts him in the shop window, and it lets teams at that level know that he's able to come in and do something. And maybe I'm in the minority here, but that's the whole point. Guys like Mikey Moore and guys like Luka Vuskovic are going to be first team members next season. And there's a good chance if we don't upgrade, they're probably going to be starters. Maybe Mikey Moore might be rotation, but Luka Vuskovic has like an outside shot at actually being a starting center back, especially if the Romero situation leads to his exit. Now all of a sudden you have this young kid that has literally grown at every single level to the point where he's going to be ready for it, right? But guys like Dane Scarlett, guys like Ashley Phillips, Alfie Dorrington, Alfie Dorrington, Devine, Jamie Donnelly. Yeah, Jamie Donnelly. These are the guys that have to be moved on.
Yeah, most of them would be sold. I mean, we'll see how Donnelly gets on at Oxford. It's like we don't... Now that Donnelly's playing with Lancashire at Oxford, the both of them are there. We'll see how he gets on. But I'd like to see Lancashire brought in the squad. But there's no point bringing them in if you're not going to give them game time because you're better off having them alone when they're getting game time. But I think
here's the thing: the idea of the loan,
Mikey Moore would get game time next season.
The idea of the loan, and especially for these players that don't have a future with Spurs, is to eventually move them on. It's the way to showcase them because in those players, especially guys like George Abbott and some of these other players, that's 15 to 25 million extra that can go into the transfer budget, and we can the idea is like we should be promoting at least 2 youth team players to the first team, getting them out on loan, and the next year moving them on. Like that is should be
the club turned down a bit for the good midfield Olusesi.
Yes, I understand.
6 million bid. Now I don't know if that's euros or not, but even at 6 mil for a kid, if that's £4 million or something like that, look,
it's still better than zero.
The academy will pay for itself. It will pay for itself because we're bringing kids in. We brought in Mason Melia from Ireland, got back strain at the moment. You know, we brought in Oliver Boast, another striker from Leeds. You look at Williams Barnett. The first time I see Tynan Thompson play the left winger, I thought, this kid's got something. Now, I don't know if he's going to carry on and keep developing to a later age, but you look at him at that level, you think he's better at that level than most others at that level. But you don't know the next level up, whether they're going. Right. Some players will go backwards. But that academy, the way they're spending money since Paratici, a lot of it's down to him. When Dean Restrick was running that academy, they had a strict pay structure. Our academy was crap, right? We'd never done nothing. once they ripped up the pay structure, said do what other clubs are doing, we're never going to get good kids in. Started bringing in Wham, the under-20s ones came through. They smashed the league. They smashed the playoff. 2 trophies they won. The under-17s and under-18s are winning cups, So, and when we go for a young kid and we're competing with Barcelona like we were for Bergvall or Arsenal or Chelsea and all that, they're coming to Spurs because the Spurs Academy wins things, right? They know that they might not be at Spurs forever and a day, but they're going to come win trophies at a young level, and then they'll move on. And if they come through, great for us. We saved millions. But this is why Vuskovic and Mikey Moore could save us an absolute fortune.
Yeah.
So could Lynch. I reckon he's the closest thing to Harry Kane, but we'll see. It's a big, bold statement to make, you know what I mean? But
King Hoddle in the chat actually brought up a very good point where it's like we both rate Mikey Moore, but when you're going up against teams like Kilmarnock and Falkirk, the equivalent of a League One side, it's really hard to gauge it. But that being said, it's like one of the things that I appreciated from Mikey Moore this year is when Russell Martin got sacked at Rangers, and the new coach came in and actually played to Mikey Moore's strength. That's when his season turned around, because before that, under Russell Martin, he was wide. He was being played essentially hugging the touchlines, and that's not his game, right? And that's the other thing that when you it's the funniest thing is like when you look at our roster, all our players are geared toward front-footing football, and not necessarily Thomas Frank. But when you look at our youth are also geared towards front-footed football, and it's you can see it across the loans. Like some of these young players that are actually ripping it up are generally playing front-footed football wherever they're landing, and so it seems kind of interesting. It seems kind of interesting that not only is our senior team, senior team geared for that football, but so is most of our youth players as well too. I just thought about that just a second ago. I was
when you look at the Scottish games, and it's about him, although he can play on the left, on the right, and the 10 as a ball carrying midfield, which he does. You watch them Scottish players. They look to give him the ball. This is why he ran the show in the last game. They look to give him the ball. And all right, he'll pop up on the left. He's right-footed. He'll pop up on the left or start on the left. But he drifts in midfield and carries the ball. And you might even see him pop up on the right, He's got he's got a low center of gravity, and he can slalom through players, He can switch his feet and slalom through players. I just think I watched him for 2 seasons. I just think and at all levels at England, under 21s, even in the competitions, he was banging in goals as well. And couldn't we do with wingers that score goals? Kudus is he's an upgrade, but he's got to score goals. Whoever comes in on the left, they've got to score goals.
Yeah. What's interesting is on a good team,
being a winger with no end product. You've got to get a hell of a lot of assists if you don't score goals. And this is what we're missing. For all the criticism at times, if you love Maddison or don't, or he's injury prone, or you love Kulu or don't, or I do. He's my favourite player at Spurs, Kulu. But whether you love those players or not, they give us 22 goals last season from midfield. We ain't getting 22 goals from any pair of the midfielders we've got now. We're not. Right?
What's interesting?
So we need them back. And then others might get goals alongside them because they will create it for you. Kulu will. Maddison's more creative, but they will get you as Mwani's got better and better. He's going to be an absolute superstar for us. He'll have crap games. He'll have games when he gets out muscled, but he'll have games when he's tigerish, like he was in that second up against Man City, putting in tackles, even getting booked.
Do you know what's interesting, Adrian, is that on a good team, Mohamed Kudus doesn't make the 11. He's a rotational player. Mohamed Kudus on this team, he's a starter.
We'll come on to this point now. One more fact to give you guys about Elo. Anyone remember this guy, Elo Joe Velez signed? Do you remember him?
Mm-hmm.
Now he's Exporter Club Bar he's going to in the summer deal because the club wouldn't release him. Another Spurs screw up for 7 points at €9 million. I think we paid. Rumours at the time we paid about 12 for him or something. A lot of money out there because we just played 13 million for Sousa. Whether that's euros or not, I don't know, right? But in Brazil, that's a lot of money for players, right? Even though Flamengo just paid 35 mil for Matey at West Ham, Paqueta. right? Because now they're getting more money. Now they're getting more money in Brazilian football. The transfer fees are obviously going to go up, So he's going in the summer. Another one off the books. Okay, let's talk about. We announced our ECL squad today.
Yes, with 3 new additions.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you got Vicario, Dragoson's been added, Danso, Paulina, Xavi, Richarlison, Gray, Tel, Udogi,
Till was
Bergvall,
added back.
even though he's injured, even though Danso's got a knock, Romero, Solanke, Kudus, Gallagher, Porro, Spence, Odobert. Right now, because I did question yesterday on a few chats when I was pumping other people's podcasts, I was going and saying, like, do you think he'll add the injured players? These are the omissions. Kulusevski, Madison, Bentancur, Davies, and Laughing Gas. For those of you who don't know who Laughing Gas is, that's Basuma, right? So we know his days are numbered. This is very telling, though, Alan, isn't it? If you know that Madison and Kulusevski are not included in the squad, you know they're not going to be back from injuries. We might not see them again this season, basically.
Or
And
well, and the last news we heard about Kulusevski was more worrying, right? His knee was not doing as well.
He's had a jab to take the pain away. If it don't go away,
he got an injection. Yeah, he got the
if
injection.
he needs another operation, if it don't work, have the operation, come back fit. He's young, he'll recover, right? It's not going to be I don't believe for a minute it's going to be career threatening, but it's something you need to fix because you don't want to start playing again and aggravating it. You know what I mean? So you've got to be patient to fix it. I mean, look, Dragoson's had to wait to come back. Bentancur came back from an ACL before.
Yeah, well, I mean, Dragoson came back. We don't know. He's only had 1 game, so we don't know what kind of player he really has come back to. But yeah, I mean, yes. It's a diminished
He
squad.
was okay when he came on for Romero.
Yeah. Look, he came on for Romero, and we won in that second half. They couldn't put anything really together. So, with a back three of who was it? It was Paulinho, Dragoson, and Udogi. No,
Udogi and Gray.
Yeah, which is kind of like a hodgepodge, right? It's not necessarily the people that you would generally expect back there, but
and for having nothing, this is another thing with Frank,
we do have.
For having two, you're playing 2 midfielders against Man City. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? We know how good they are. Even if they only had 2 in midfield, we know how good they'd be. So now we're playing 2. You're playing Gallagher, who no fault of his own, he's not had a regular partner. Steve alluded to partnerships earlier, right? And it includes on the left, your right back and your right wing, your left back, they should have an understanding with the right and left-sided midfield player as well, right? And then you're starting off with 5 at the back, Frank, and you're only leaving 2 in midfield against Man City. When I see it was 5, because I thought it was going to be, 4-2-3-1 when I was at the stadium, until I see them actually set up. I thought, and then you notice that Semenyo, to me, and I could see why Paulinho was dropping back because Frank was obviously worried about Semenyo. Did you notice that Paulinho at times, him and Semenyo came together quite a few times, and Semenyo was screaming for fucking free kicks, because then you got Spence there as well. So maybe he didn't trust Spence defensively against Semenyo, So I just thought, oh no, Frank, sorry, mate, you're not Spurs DNA. You've got to go in the summer, I mean,
one of the interesting things was the inclusion on Danso on this list, because we've been hearing a lot of horror stories that Danso's injury could have had ligament damage. But that being said, it's the difference between a guy like Kulusevski and a guy like Danso being included in the Champions League squad. So, just his inclusion is essentially telegraphs that maybe his injury wasn't as detrimental as originally reported. And so for me, that gives me a little bit of hope, because Danso is going to be a very, very key player in this round of 16. But outside of that, it's like I didn't think Basuma was going to make the Champions League squad. Yes, he's had a couple decent performances, but that being said, it's like, with the idea that we have Gallagher and we have Polina. I don't think there was going to be a need for a guy like Yves Bissouma, because I mean, if Betancourt was available, he would probably be in this one as well too. So, but from that standpoint, it's nice to see that Matisse Tell is back in this, back in the fold when it comes to the Champions League. Now the question is whether or not he's going to get game time. I doubt it. But that being said, he's on it, and I would say that this 22 is the best 22 that we can possibly put together for whatever's going to happen in the round of 16.
So many of them.
Alan, what is also revealing here is that Kudus and Richarlison are in there, so it tells us that their injury issues aren't that serious because they've been added to the squad. So we know they're going to be coming back.
Does it mean that? I don't know what it means. Maybe they had no one else to put in. Or would they have put in Byfield or something?
That's a fair point.
I don't know what I don't know if it tells me that. It kind of just tells me.
Well, you could have put Laughing Gas in that case. You could have put Bissouma in because we know he's fit.
Right. Although I think the club is only putting him in the Premier League games because I think they're tired of his antics.
Yeah, our fans want him out. I want him out, but I think they'll activate his 1 year.
I thought Bergvall was long-term injured. I thought Kudus was long-term injured, and I thought Richarlison was fairly long-term injured. So I wasn't sure when I saw this. I was like, well, I don't understand why they're included. We just don't really have anybody else to replace them with,
we are
allowed.
I mean, there aren't, before people have a pot at the club over this, there aren't many of our Premier League teams, the 5 that are in the Champions League, that have got a 25-man ECL squad. But bear in mind, people, if you're worried about losing 3, we can make it up with under 21s that qualify. So you've got the B list. So we're not short. I mean, like you say, Byfield would be on the B list. You can put others on that B list. So yeah, it's noticeable that Bergvall and Gray. See, they obviously haven't. They are not on the B list, being under 21s, because they haven't done enough seasons with the first team to go on that B list. That's why they're here. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in this. They'd be on the B list. That's my understanding of it anyway. So, like I say, so with me, it means that Kudus and Maddison are long term. I've never seen Maddison back on grass.
Why 3 keepers in this equation when you only need 2? And maybe take a risk by adding a guy like Maddison to it, just in case. You know what I mean? Like it's something that I just don't understand the need to have 3 keepers on your roster. Because chances are we're not even going to use our backup.
Yeah, I think that's more because of all the games you play. I mean, don't forget your keepers could get injured during a Premier League game as well. Sure. So I think you go with 3. And now luck with injuries, guys, if it went with 2, right? Right. So I think that is the issue there. I just think we've got 14 games to play, and we only need 2 wins basically. For those of you that are frightened of relegation, because in the last 6 seasons, 35 points the team went down with. So that's the highest amount of points. And it has been 29 and 28 points, the third from bottom team's gone down with. And like with West Ham away at Burnley this weekend, and then they've got Bournemouth at home who are flying, they've got Man United, and they've got Liverpool. I could see the next 4 games. People worrying about us getting points. I don't see us getting at least another 4, right, out of these hard games, Arsenal, Newcastle, and Man United. So yeah, I think West Ham are doomed, personally, but it's just
Notts Forest didn't do so well today against Leeds, so
they could be in the running. Forest, I suppose, are only 3 points away from Forest. That'll be their target. Mm-hmm. I still think Forest have got. See, when you got the running, I think this is when the big teams do well because they've got the strength in depth to cover injuries and things like that. So
I remember that. Remember when Keane had to go in goal?
I remember Hoddle going in goal at Man United when we knocked them out 1-0 with Ozzy Ardiles goal. We went on to win the cup.
Oh, wow.
When Joe Jordan knocked Malexic's teeth out. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So that's the Champions squad. So we've done the transfer windows. Like I said, let's delete that. Okay, guys. Man United away. All right. Spurs unbeaten the last 4 years, 8 games in all competitions. I remember under Alex Ferguson, Steve, we could never beat Man United home or away. And now,
yeah. As a matter of fact, back in the 90s, there was a saying that if you went to Old Trafford and you lost 2-1, that was considered a good result because Man United can just put you to sword at Old Trafford at will, right? So if you were able to go to that stadium and even work a 2-1 loss, that was still considered a victory. You're 100% right with that.
Yeah. They're doing quite well under Michael Carrick, our ex-player of West Ham as well. First, then us, then to them. So we have a habit of going and spoiling the party, though. You know,
I'm excited about this game. I mean, as you said, we have a very good record against Man United in recent years. They've been playing very well under their current coach, Michael Carrick, and you know, he's more United DNA than I think Amorim was. But it's a purple patch. I think it's just look, they did some more, you know, they improved their squad. You know, when they knew they didn't have Europe, they still improved their squad. They got Cunha, they got what's his name from Brent Mbeumo, you know, and Sesko, and they've improved their squad. Their goalie Lamens is much better than their old goalie. You know, so they've done smart business in the transfer windows.
yeah, they got rid of Banana. Is he still there?
No, I think he's
Banana.
he's at he's in Turkey
gone
now, I think.
Yeah, he's gone. He's gone.
Yeah. But you know, we're a team of two halves. If we show two halves like we did the first half, we're not gonna go anywhere. If we can show like we did in the second half against Man City, we've got a good chance. You know, if we can own that midfield, and shut down, you know, Bruno and Casemiro and whatnot, and kind of keep them quiet. Yeah, we might have a pretty good chance, I think. The question is who, you know, with a front three, when we're so desperate for players that, you know, the front three that we have, I'm assuming Solanke will be up front. And maybe it'll be Odegaard and
the injuries list is sort of going down from 12 and 13 to 9 now. Porro's out, Kudus is out, Bergval's out, Richarlison's out, Bentancur's out, Kulusevski, Madison, Ben Davis, and Kevin Danso. Now, it was said today on the last report that VDV and Romero are fit to play.
Yeah.
Spence might have been iffy, but he wasn't mentioned that much. So we're going to have our central defenders back, which is good.
Yeah.
I don't know how we're going to set up, whether we're going to play back five or not. I don't know. But we'll come to that in a second. So they're the 9. So, well, let's do the lineup then, Steve. Obviously, Vicaro's in goal, and we can assume that Romero and VDV are going to start. So,
I think we're going to be playing in a 3-4-2-1. I think the back five is going to be deployed again for this match as well too.
Are you thinking it's going to be VDV, Romero, and Paulinho?
No, I think it's going to be VDV, Romero, and Dragusin on the right side. Well, here's the thing, right? Because in this instance, like, you know, I heard VDV was touch and go, but if he's going to be available, like if he's going to be available, I'd rather have Dragusin on the right side of a back three. You know, people forget that when he was developing and before he came to Spurs, his position was on the right side of the back three. So it's, you know, that's actually his natural position is right center back, especially in a back three. And I would actually be okay with him being the guy that's essentially defending the essentially the left side of that 18-yard box. But what I will say is, I think this is going to be crucial that Paulinho and Gallagher are that midfield pair, because both are capable of doing the exact same thing, which is putting out fires. And tomorrow in this game, especially with the idea of Bruno Fernandes back in the 10 and being in that central area to pull the strings, you're going to need a João Palhinha camped in front of that 18-yard box. You're going to need it. You're going to need his tackling ability and paired with Conor Gallagher. And we saw what Conor Gallagher is able to do physically. He did it against Man City, and he looked actually pretty, he looked pretty confident in his ability. It's going to be essential that those two are going to be that midfield pair.
Alan, you agreeing? We're going to go like a 3-4-3?
Yeah, I think so. I think he'll probably have VDV on the left and Romero in the middle and Dragusin on the right. We do need to strengthen the midfield. I think that if we lose the midfield, the game is done. We can't let Manchester United run that midfield. We just can't.
See, Frank tends to match up, and they've changed under character 4-3-3, basically. So they'll have 3 in the middle, Alan.
You think he'll go 4-3-3 to match up with them?
Yeah. But I could be wrong. And Steve could be right. I mean, look, I think he will. Because I don't think, depending on who Carrick plays, but before, under Amorim, their midfield was slow. They lacked legs in midfield.
They did.
So
yeah, but Amorim was playing Bruno Fernandes as a holding midfielder. You know what I mean? Like Amorim had, Amorim was one of the biggest catalysts for that midfield. I guess you can say shit show, right? Ever since Carrick has gotten in, he's put those players in the positions that they're supposed to be, and you've seen that midfield look awesome under Carrick. So,
see if you got the 3-4. If the 4 do it, that's fine. But I think it'll be VDV and Romero, and I think it's going to be obviously Spence and your doggy, and we can have 3 in the middle. Even if we go 4-3-1-2. Well, yeah. He says in his press conference, he says they're fit. You'll have. Look, you're not risking. He's injured then, so you got Dragusin on the bench, right, to cover in case anything goes wrong. And then you've got someone to bring on. Unless Byfield's on the bench, we don't know who's going to be on the bench yet. We can only surmise. I think I would go 4-3-3. Well, actually, I'd go 4-3-1-2 to be honest, because I'd want 3 in midfield. I've been moaning about the midfield for 2 seasons now about not winning a midfield battle. Right? We need to compete there. And we know that if you go 3 in midfield, if you had Gray and, like Steve said, Palhinha and Gallagher, if things get a bit tough, Xavi will drop back to help out and pick the ball up. So then you can really go at them. You can get 4 against their 3 in midfield. And it's a question who's up front with Solanke then,
Probably Odegaard, maybe. He had a good game the other game.
Yeah. I would...
if you want to play you could play Tell there because that's his more natural position. As an inside. We moaned about Johnson. Really, he was never played in his right position anyway, was he? Go on, Steve.
In a 4-3-2-1, the biggest problem with the 4-3-2-1 is you do have essentially 2 attacking 10s with Odegaard and Xavi underneath Dominic Solanke. One of the things that, as of right now, like if we had Pedro Porro, then it's a different combination because you're going to have both him. You're going to have both Destiny Udogie and Pedro Porro providing the width that's necessary, and from it, a guy like Conor Gallagher might be the guy that is going to be the link between him and Xavi through the midfield. As
so
it
would
stands,
Gray do that as well, because Gray progresses the ball. So with Palhinha sitting
right now, Gray's
forward.
Yeah, but as of right now, there's a good chance that Archie Gray is going to be at right back tomorrow because Jed Spence is not going to be available, right? Porro's out, and I think Jed Spence might not be available tomorrow, so Archie Gray is going to be back at right back. So that takes it out of that.
Right.
That takes that out of the equation.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, it's like there's also a there's also a thought of, instead of it, like, there's
Sorry,
a thought
I'll
of
switch
pushing.
that then. Sorry. Then if I'm taking Gray that midfield three, I'm putting Sarr in there.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
was just going to say that, right? So it's like there's also the thought that you can still play Polina in the back three, and then your midfield two is Gallagher and Sarr. And Sarr can actually be that link up, and also late box crasher if you need it. That probably would work a little bit better
Yeah, I mean,
than Polina, because if it's Polina Gallagher, then essentially what you're saying is that those two are going to be withdrawn midfielders, and they're not going to be pushing forward. They're actually going to be staying back. And that first half, we're just going to concede possession.
Gallagher's an 8. I mean, he has pushed forward as
he's
a
not
10
been
before.
played-
He's not a 10. Not a 10.
Yeah, but he, the way that Thomas
So-
Frank
so
uses
you
him
could
is the same
play-
way that he's.
You could have Polina as the deep sitter that comes left and right, if necessary, or break up attacks. Then you could have Gallagher and Sarr in front of him. Both of them get forward, and then you've got your 4-3, and then it's a question if you're playing a 1-2 in front of them, like, which is what I would do. I'd play Xavi, and then I'd play two up there. Either you could even play Odebert off. You wouldn't have to necessarily play him as a winger because he's playing a centre. You could play Odebert or Tel off of Solanke. But having said that, Frank will probably do something totally different. But
I mean, I just think that if you see a more physical midfield of Polini and Gallagher, it signals that it's going to be a very pragmatic start to the match, and we're not going to have possession. But that being said, if you have Sarr in there, at least you have the counterattacking ability, and maybe that is the play that's going to have that's eventually going to be in the first half, because what's going to end up happening is that at halftime there's going to be some adjustment, and then all of a sudden we're going to abandon our formation, and we're going to be trying to play pick up all.
I want to see more of the Gallagher I see in the second half against Man City. I mean, he got forward for the cross for the goal. He got the assist.
Yeah, that play, by the way, was amazing. That goal,
the battle to win the ball and get the break on as well. So we know he'll get forward and pop up with a goal. Sarr don't mind a goal against Man United. He scored against them at home, things like that. Right?
And he's a physical player. He likes being physical.
Yeah, and he Frank won't like it, but he does like a goal from outside the box, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the odd header, right? So I think to match them with Gallagher, Paulina being deeper, because the other two have got legs. One thing Gallagher and Sarr will give you in that midfield is more legs than Man United have got in midfield.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's the sort. I'm going 4-3. That's if he doesn't play a back five. They got Mbuema on one side, and you've got
Cunha,
the striker, the 9, Cunha.
Or are they playing Cunha up top?
Cunha up top. Then on the other wing, you've got
Mbuema.
Mbuema. You're not going to play Xerxes, are they?
Yeah, I don't think. Maybe. That's a good question.
So in their midfield, I get the energy, win the midfield bat, and see how it goes. And if you're in the game, you can always make a switch on the hour mark or whatever. So,
if you ask a lot of the United fans, I know that they say that their concern, I think, is they don't know how to hold a lead. They're worried, that they think that if they go up like 2 up, they don't. They haven't been able to hold a lead very well. They almost blew it with Fulham. They've flubbed leads, and especially at home.
Yeah. So, if we're on our A game resilience, we take something from this game, whether it's a point.
Absolutely, 100%.
Right,
because if we give away sloppy goals like we do, we're either very good defensively, like winning the Europa League or in games away at Brighton or things like that, or we just seem to switch off and we give away the goals. We give away this. You wouldn't mind if they were worldies or deflections or unlucky, but some of them are just a joke. I mean, the way Ryan Cherky carved through us for Man City, they look like they've come through it as well. The midfield always concerns me. There's been no cohesion. Either the midfielders have sat back when we've been very resilient in games and done really well, or when they try, and there's been no link up play with the forwards, and fans moan about the forwards when they've not been given any service, because lack of creativity. But we've never sort of got the balance right with the midfield to service the back four and the front three. We haven't got it right. And
that's probably where our advantage is going to be, because quite honestly, their center back pairing is one of the biggest reasons why, they're leaking goals late. And so from that standpoint, there is an area where a guy like Dominic Solanke can actually be absolutely effective. And so from that standpoint, it's going to be where we're going to pick and choose the time that we're going to counterattack.
Was he 3-3? I think
4. He's got 4.
4 and 4.
He's looking sharp for someone who's not fully fit to score that backheel flick, right?
That scorpion kick was crazy.
Vuskovic scored by one like that in Germany, as well. Yes, I mean, like,
how did it look in person when you were there? How did the audience take it? The fans.
If he's here, I'm up high here when he does it. So when Conor Gallagher's put the ball in, you sort of see the contact. A lot of these things happen in football. Down the far end of the pitch, I'm asking guys next to me, and I'm wearing glasses, is that a foul or whatever? And like, you can't see everything from where you are on the pitch when it happens. Come across. I knew there was contact. And I will rush it. When I'm home, I'll flick through the highlights to see if I've missed something. Like, I didn't see it at the game like that. I see it go over Donnarumma, and he's 6'5", isn't he? Right. So, an arm's length on top of that. And I think he just got a touch on it, but couldn't do nothing. He meant it. He meant to get contact and hit it forward.
Oh.
So, and it went in. I mean, brilliant goal.
Goals of the season.
Yeah, that and Solans, that and a couple from Polina and Romero's scissors fucking swoop kick and a goal as well. I mean, like,
or VDV
we're scoring great goals and it's just not picking up points.
Right. Yep. So, what do you think is the score? What do you think is going to happen?
I never back my team to lose. I'm thinking win or draw there, believe it or not. When we've won there in the past, it's sort of like 3-2. We've won a few times there.
That's what I'm going with, 3-2.
Yeah.
I see goals
When's
in this game.
When's the last time we scored? When's the last time we scored 3 in the Premier League in a winning effort?
Against Man City away?
Yeah, okay, that was at the beginning of the season. And Burnley. Match day 1 and 2.
Yep.
In Europe? Have we done it in Europe?
We came close against Man City the last week. I mean, close but no cigar, but
yeah, close is only good in hand grenades and horseshoes, my friend.
Yeah.
I don't know about 3-2. I know what it can do when we're tight. I'm going to go 2-0 Spurs. Clean sheet.
Wow.
You're going 3-2.
Steve
usually pops up with his regular 2-all.
Well, again, if this was Ruben Amorim in charge of Manchester United, I'd probably be right there with you, because we actually had the psychological advantage over Manchester United under Amorim. Amorim had a tendency to overthink these games, and it eventually ended up in a loss. But Michael Carrick has came in and simplified things, and all of a sudden, I do agree with Alan. Number one, I think that they're getting a new manager bounce. I think 100% that's what's happening. But that being said, Manchester United just simply has better talent. Like, even if we were at full strength, we're not an upper echelon team, because we don't have a 20-goal scorer in our roster. We don't have a focal point of the attack. Not to mention the fact we have a system that's defensively dependent, and that's not a front-footed attack. Be that as it may, I would probably think you guys would agree that when the season ends, Manchester United probably has a European spot.
Oh, for sure they will.
For sure. And Carrick probably gets the permanent job. But what I will say is tomorrow, number one, our form, like, that's the thing, is I don't know if that second half versus Manchester City was the start of something, or whether that was just trying to save face in an otherwise crappy game. So, and you know how Thomas Frank sets up. He gives his opponents far too much respect, and it's reactive to how the opponent starts. That's the way this works, right? And so from that standpoint, me personally, I don't think we're in good form, to be honest with you. And I think we struggle to score in the run of play, and we're dependent on our center backs for goals, which is not sustainable in a week in and week out basis. So from that standpoint, and again, I wish I could be a happy clapper. I wish I can be somebody that is going to be like 4-0 Spurs every single week. And it's like, listen, as much as I want this team to win, we're in a bad way right now. And it didn't help that we got absolutely jack all in the January transfer window. And it's like, I like Conor Gallagher, but what we needed was forward players. That's exactly what we needed. And we didn't address that. And so from that standpoint, man, I hate to be the one to say it, but I'm picking United 3-1. And I'm pretty sure that it's going to be a goal from either VDV, Romero, or Polina at some point tomorrow.
Fair enough.
So we got two of us on the win, and Steve's never been invited back on his show again. Right?
By the way, when we get Fulham and Crystal Palace after this stretch, I'll probably predict a win. Predict a win.
Right. So basically, I mean, not that we should worry about relegation, in my opinion, but other fans do. The only time, to me, the media will always try and drag you in because there's another stick to bash us with. But to me, you're not in a relegation battle until you're within 3 points of the team that was third from bottom. That's the way I look at it. There's no point worrying about it until then, right? But
I say
but these aren't all our remaining fixtures, but they're most of them. I mean, like after Man United, we've got Newcastle at home. We can win that. Arsenal at home, that's tough. I think we could get 4 points from Newcastle and Man United, though. Why is that gone? Is it on the 10-second?
It's a tough game. Tough game. Newcastle in general. I mean, they haven't looked great, but they against top teams. But I think against us, I think they're going to show up. Arsenal, of course, they're going to show up because it's the North London derby, and it's
Newcastle,
look, they're the best team in the world right now, and for whatever reason, they are the best team in the world. I don't know that we're going to beat the best team
on the 10-second time. I think. Sorry, I'll get this fixed now.
Yeah, I think Newcastle is a coin flip because it all depends on which Newcastle team shows up. Right, it's a team that
they don't travel well, do they?
Yeah, Newcastle's talented, but sometimes they have a tendency to not show up.
Yeah.
But against Spurs, they have they have actually been better than not, and that's not with the draw that we went up to St. James and were able to get a result after that. What I will say is, like, of these 4 teams that we played, I thought we were going to lose to City. We got a point. Is it out of the realm of possibility that we can work a draw against Newcastle? No, I think that seems pretty reasonable. But against United's in form, Arsenal is just exactly what Alan just said. They're the best team in the world right now, and they're playing as it as well too. And again, as soon as we turn the page after that Arsenal match on the 22nd, and then all of a sudden it's like, we have Fulham, Palace, Forest, Sunderland, Brighton, and Wolves with the only
Liverpool.
Team in there that's going to give us really trouble is Liverpool. So as soon as we turn the page from this Arsenal, we have a nice little 5-6 week stretch where we can actually get some points on the board.
Well, you look at it. I mean, look at it. If the third place team got more points than usual, right? Which it might be only in the late 20s they might finish with. I mean, you look at anyone think Spurs aren't going to get 4 wins out of the last 14 games? 12 points, which would put us, at 40, over 40. I mean, it's not going to come to that for the third place relegation spot. Like I say,
realistically,
Then they've got Bournemouth recently beat Liverpool, didn't they? They've got Bournemouth at home. They've got I think they might have. They've got Man United at home and away, but I know they've got Liverpool away in their 4 games. I can see West Ham going 4 games and not getting a single point. But I mean, football's strange. Things don't happen the way you think. Sometimes when you look, you know,
Yeah.
if you're on a run, you're confident no matter who you're playing, home or away.
Yeah.
But like, when's the last time we were on a run? Under Poch, I think. Or Conte when we got the last European Champions League spot.
Yeah, but you're right, though. I mean, all we really need is 11 points, and we're at 40, and that should keep us up.
Yeah, I'm not worried about getting relegated. I don't think we're in a position to get relegated.
Now it's but again, our record against the Fulhams and the Sunderlands and the Brightons haven't exactly been all that great. And so it's a little bit of a worry, right? So you know, we'll know where we're actually going to be at after this little 3-game stretch here. And when we start getting the Fulhams again and we start getting those teams, we'll find out exactly if we're capable of that 11-point swing. Because something is going to have to give with this team, right? And we've already, you know, the perfect thing was right there in that early January swing when we had Bournemouth and we had Palace and we had you know, Burnley and West Ham. Like that was the perfect opportunity to get some points and kind of take away the relegation talk. And we dropped what 3 out of those 4 matches. And so that's the thing. It's like I can't necessarily say that 11 points is guaranteed until we actually see what this team looks like again against the Fulhams and the Palaces and some of these different teams, because quite honestly, like I'm at that stage where it's like I got to see it before I can actually buy into it.
Well, Palace have dropped off form recently because they've sold their better players as they normally do. And I don't think it's a good thing when a manager turns around and says, I'm leaving at the end of the season. What sort of message does that take the players? They take the foot off the gas.
Oh, yeah.
How does Brennan Johnson feel going there knowing the manager's going? You know,
nobody forced his hand to go.
I always look for the teams that are dropping. We've been treading water, right? But I look for the teams that start dropping. They're dropping like a stone. So Palace, to me, it should be all right, but because I still think the bottom 3 will go down. I think Forest squad's too big to go down.
Yeah,
basically,
I don't think Forest is going down either.
Mm.
And here's the weird thing. I think Leeds stay up. I think Leeds will get the points required to stay up. I actually think that West Ham will eventually go down.
Leeds' home form will keep them up, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're very good at home.
West Ham are they hate their ownership, I think, more than we hate ours.
This isn't new though, guys, is it? I mean, if you take every club's fan base now, I've watched a few of these Premier League games when the home team's not won. Every fan base I've watched, Everton or whatever, they've all booed their team off at half time, right? Mm-hmm. This is a cultural thing now. It never happened back in the day. It's a cultural thing now. If you ain't winning at half time, you virtually get booed off. And and there's a lot of clubs out there nowhere near as rich as us. And even their fans at their club want all their ownerships gone. If you took the bottom half of the Premier League now, including us, you'd find that most of them were, and Arsenal fans were moaning about the way their team were playing and they're top of the league. I mean, this is just purely cultural. You know, all fan bases moan. They just do.
Yeah.
I mean, what I've seen when I've watched, and I don't watch too many Premier League games. I'd rather watch our under-21s. It's much better football. And they're playing Sunday by one. Spurs play if anyone wants to watch.
By the way, that is the indictment right there. What you just said, that you would rather watch under-21s than the actual senior team because it's exciting football. If that's not an indictment, a total indictment, then I don't know what is.
Good Premier League games are very few and far between them. It's all the same robotic football, right? Every seems to be owned a coaching school, to play this way, and most of it is based on like safety first, risk averse, and it goes for the players as well. Don't want their stats to look good of giving the ball away and things like that. Remember Poch when he was before? He said, "I want my players to take risks in the final third." So do I. So do I. If you lose the ball, so what? It's the final third. You got your midfielders and your back four, sort it out, recycle, go again. Take a chance, you know. And I don't agree with Frank. Shoot from outside the box. Birkinshaw said, "You want to beat?" We didn't talk about low presses then. It was like when teams come to defend deep was the expression that we used, right? You've got your wingers take your players on down the wings, which we did. They might get you free kicks. You know, you've got to have shots from outside the box, and you've got to have midfielders that make late runs in the box. And that's how you beat the low press. 3 other ways you beat the low press. If people know more, let me know. I'm always willing to learn. Guys, we've been going for 2 hours 10. I've really enjoyed the show. I'm enjoying these Friday shows. They're good. As long as we keep it interesting. Because as long as they're interesting, I don't mind carrying on, right? You know? So, yeah, I want to thank Steve and Alan for coming on. You can see their banners in the comments section. Right, they're at the very beginning of the show. For those of you watching us on playback, go over to their podcasts on YouTube and subscribe to their channel and give their videos a thumbs up. And while you do that, there's still 60 of you watching us on various platforms or listening to us on various platforms. Please get over to Spurs Diehards YouTube channel and give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can even take out a membership if you want. Yeah, because that's all well and good. There's a good show coming up Sunday from us. EMF is going to host a show with Brian Daigle, Connor S., who's Levy Nomics.
Oh, yeah.
From the Pro Movement. They'll be talking about potential investors or ownership. And obviously, there'll be, if they have time, they'll talk about the game against Man United. They might talk about I don't know. That's down to
the result.
Yeah, so, yeah, the results. If we lose them, we've got that chat. It could get quite interesting. Let's put it that way, right? So get over to the show. That'll be going out 8 o'clock Sunday. You can find me Tuesdays and Fridays. Fridays here at 10 o'clock with these, and usually at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on European football, mostly Tuesdays though. So with that, I want to thank everyone in the chat for their comments and questions. I want to thank the 60 odd of you watching us on various platforms out there. And thanks again to my guest and Justin, who made his debut today. We'll get him back as well. And yeah, I'll play you out with this.
We are top until we die. We are top until we die. Spurs die hard, heart and soul. We are top until we die. We are top until we die. Spurs die hard and soul. We are top until we die. We are top until we die. Spurs die hard and soul. Lily white and navy blue. Top until we die, we are top until we die. Spurs die hard, heart and soul. Lily white and navy blue. Top until we die, we are top until we die. Spurs die hard, heart and soul. We are top until we die, we are top until we die. Spurs die hard, heart and soul. We are top until we die, we are top until we die. Spurs die hard, heart and soul. Lily white and navy blue. We are top until we die. We are top until we die. Spurs die hard, heart and soul. Lily white and navy blue. We are top until we die. We are top until we die. Spurs die hard, heart and soul. Lily white and navy blue.